I call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Mary Kay.
Dr. Dave Bardo,
Here.
Joe Maddock Nelson, Dr. Noel Deep, Katie Anna Stringa,
Here.
Dr. Julie Sprague,
Here.
Danny Pyatt.
Here. We don't have any public comments, so we'll move on to new business A, descriptions of district-owned property.
All right. So first, I want to welcome Mike Winter here this evening with us. Thank you for coming. Mike has compiled a very comprehensive list of all district-owned properties. Everybody was given the overview, and Mike will speak to the properties. I do have all of the documentation for each property if people would like to see it, but I didn't find it necessary to provide all of it in paper, so.
No problem.
All right.
Yeah, I think you just have the summary sheet that I put together listing the 14 sites. But Katie does have for each site a copy of the parcel mapping from the county GIS, which I think would be good to have in your file. The tax printouts from the county site, as well as the vesting deeds, or the deeds where the school district received the property. So what I did on the summary sheet was listed each site, the document numbers referencing the deeds where title was transferred. I listed the parcel numbers, and then I indicated whether or not the parcels were subject to any kind of reversionary clause. And I had Langlade Abstract assist with document search at the Register of Deeds to come up with those. But so we do have a few parcels that are subject to reversionary clauses. Most of them are on the first page of the summary. The Schofield Stadium site, which is actually site number 7 on the second page, is subject to reversion. And then one of the parcels is subject to an agreement with the city about a split of the proceeds if that property is ever sold. So some of them list, like Town of Neva, for example, number 1, indicates that it's subject to a reversionary clause, that if it's not used for forestry or recreational purposes, it shall revert back to the county in that event. And then one of the Neboken School Forest properties is also subject to a similar reversionary clause like that with forestry and recreational purpose. There are a few parcels that, when they were transferred over, and a lot of these came from the county, but for example, in Forest, it was deeded to the Liberty Bell School District number 1, Town of Vilas, and that's how the title has always remained. And then that was one of the pieces in the Town of Vilas. The other is in the Forest View School District of the Town of Vilas. town of Neva, it was actually titled in the Deerbrook Graded School, which is how it exists currently on the title as well.
Mike, do we have, is it on here somewhere, the property that we just purchased on Elm Street? And then also the property that is to the south of West Elementary? Is that on here too? With
The-
West Elementary maybe?
Yeah, the Elm Street, that's on here. I think that's listed under the Schofield Stadium site, maybe.
Is that listed under those?
It's under the, yeah, it's under the Schofield Stadium site, so that, I think that Elm Street one that you were talking about is right there. And then there was another one.
South of the school on 7th Avenue. Don't we own that across the street?
Over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that one, I think, is, that included as part of West Elementary, so that would be the school and then that site across the
Okay,
street.
okay.
The maps are real helpful. I think the county has a good GIS system. I use it a lot. I think it's set up pretty well, and it's been updated real well, too, to this point. I know they're losing their GIS person, so I don't know what's going to happen going forward. Hopefully, they can keep it up the way they have been, because it's really very helpful.
And the maps that you're looking at, Katie Ann, were those attached?
Those
Is that
are,
in that long?
that's in this really big packet. That has not been scanned or attached.
I don't know if that was in the long document with all the district properties.
That one is a document of all the deeds, I think,
Okay.
only. Mike had gotten me these last week with the GIS and everything, so I can definitely have Mary Kay go ahead and scan those and have them electronic
That'd
as
be
well.
nice.
Okay.
But I'll take a hard copy,
You click hard?
if that's what those are.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take one of those before we go to them.
Oh, that is all. This is one copy of the docs.
Oh,
That, yes,
Sorry.
nope, that's okay.
no, then I won't ask
That is
for it.
one copy.
Okay, I misunderstood. I
Yeah,
looked at all
no.
those things, I was like, oh, there's
No.
like enough for everybody.
That
Wrong.
is,
No, that's what Mike has.
yes,
Yep.
that is one copy of all of the properties that are outlined in the
Got
overview.
it.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
misunderstood. Glad they're looking at the back of the head tonight.
Just to see the maps
Yes.
attached on here, that'd be good.
The maps?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You just want the maps
Yeah,
only?
yeah,
Okay.
because
Yep,
everything
just the
else is in
top
that
one.
other document, all the deeds and all of that. is in
Correct. The
there.
one thing that is in here that is not in the other one is also the GIS tax bill with like the
we
numbers
can
in that,
do
which
that.
would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
So if you did just maps and the GIS, it wouldn't be all,
It wouldn't be all
It
that.
wouldn't be all this.
okay.
Good. Be like 2 pages.
Yeah,
apart.
Yeah,
The rest is the
two
deeds and
to
stuff.
like
Yeah.
the ones that have these, it would be
Yeah.
4, yeah.
I don't think you have the
In the-
deeds, but I don't know that you need the deeds for your,
Were
yeah.
they uploaded?
But you might want to see the maps and the,
They're in here.
Nope.
the
They-
deeds are in in this packet,
Yeah.
but I don't know that you need those really for your reference, but you've got them for the file.
So Mike, you feel the maps and the GIS would be sufficient?
For,
we don't
for
have-
your
yes, yep,
review,
just clear.
yeah.
Yep.
And I summarized from the deeds which
Was it-
parcels are subject to any of the reversions, so,
Thank you for doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, any other further questions for Mike? Mike, thanks for your time.
You're welcome. You bet, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Aren't you glad you were on at
Welcome, Joe.
6?
I am, yes, thank you, thank you. I can go home and eat dinner.
Okay, we're gonna move on to B, devices for 2023-2024 with ECF funds.
Yes, Mark will make his way. Thank you.
Mark, every time you show up here, you want money.
I know, it's a habit of mine.
Job hazard.
He has been successful though, so I mean, why not?
Keep coming back until you say no, right?
And even then, you should still keep coming
Yeah,
back.
exactly, I'll still come back, yeah. All right, if you've got your sheet open that I sent over, basically, all these devices will end up costing us nothing when all the paperwork is said and done. Taxpayers, yes, but not the district. I just wanted to go over the two different kinds of funding. The BEAR is, we put the money up front, and then I ask for the reimbursement once we have the devices. And ECF makes me prove that we actually did get them. They want proof of delivery and proof that we're actually dividing them out individually per student. They only want one per student. So that's my paperwork on my end. That's for iPads, laptops, and Chromebooks for that. So they don't want us to give somebody two when they don't really need two. ECF fundings is the emergency connectivity funding that was set up for distance learning a few years ago with the COVID and everything. So it's to help just if they need to take the devices home, that they're able, every family has one. Same with the staff for them to teach. iPads are 4K and K, and then the Chromebooks are 1 through 12 grades. So basically, we have to put the money up front for the iPads, and then I fill out the paperwork to get reimbursed once I have them in my hand. Same thing with the part payment of the staff laptops. They only give us $400 per device for ECF funding. So then the $21,120 is the difference between what the actual cost is and what the ECF funding allows. And in the bottom one, there's really no fund exchange because CDW has allowed us to do the SPY, which means they worry about getting the money back from the ECF funding, not us, for half of the staff and all of the Chromebooks. Okay,
Yeah.
so pretty simply, I just wanted to make sure you explained, and if there's any questions about how the funding is and how it goes, so.
What's the turnaround for your reimbursement?
Usually pretty quick,
Okay.
usually within 6 weeks. It's been, once I get all the loops and figure out everything they need. They a couple times have had questions last year when I reapplied, and they were simple questions that we were able to answer and continue with the process, so. But yeah, 8 weeks is pretty far.
How do we decide on the Chromebooks? For the students?
For how many you mean?
No, just that our Chromebooks are different than the student Chromebooks. You know, I get asked a lot, or it's brought up frequently enough, of the quality of the student ones. And
Durability is the big thing.
that's what I want.
Durability is the first criteria. Second, and then it's the size, easy for them to maneuver around. Yours are bigger than theirs. Theirs are 11.6, and I think yours is 13. It's a little bit easier for them to handle and move around. And we've had, knock on wood, really good luck with the models that we've had. Sticking with Acer, we actually use the old ones that the seniors don't buy, and the ones that we use them for parts to keep the newer ones going. Acer's been really nice that we have been able to use parts from the past to keep the other ones going as they come in, so.
Okay.
Mark, can you give me a little background on this funding? Is this year to year, and do we know, is it going to be available for,
ECF was just 2-year span. This
2
is the
years.
second year.
so this is the end of
Yes,
this?
this will be the end of
Okay.
it, yeah. Yep, and then you know the ESSER part of the process. So,
Thank you.
Otherwise, this money always came out of my budget to purchase devices. Okay.
Everybody good with the information that Mark has provided us? Okay,
All right.
thank you, Mark.
Yep, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
We'll move on to new business C, greenhouse project funding.
All right, so this was placed on the agenda per Dave's request from the Buildings and Grounds the committee meeting last month. And so this came up between the two. I provided you guys the overview that I had given for Buildings and Grounds in regards to the greenhouse funding project and the recommendation behind it. Are there any questions on that, the overview?
So this is basically the presentation that they made to us about
Yes.
taking the 125 across and then minus whatever they get.
Correct, yes. Yep, absolutely. And Shalyn, would you like to give a little update on what you've done between then and now?
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. I know you've been working very hard, so I don't want to downplay what you've been doing, and you could do it better
Not a
justice
problem.
than me.
No problem. So from the January meeting till now, we have been seeking bids, and then I have been in the process of writing grants. So I have submitted one grant, and I am in the process of working on 4 more, and I just realized there's another one out there that I can apply for. Most of these are local grants, local as in Langley County, Marathon County. And then I'm also looking at some USDA grants. We just finalized the letter to go out to the community, which was public last week, and so we'll be getting those letters out to possible donors as well.
Okay.
If you have anything to add.
Yeah. To date, we have received some donations, and we have also received a pledge of $35,000.
Wow.
So that is to date.
That's
And
wonderful.
that's in 1 week. So
Amazing.
we're excited.
Yes,
It's a good start.
yes,
Did you do a happy dance?
I think we all did.
yes.
Yes.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah, yeah.
And we do have some people out have reached out to me. Once this is continuing to move forward, then they want to know where we're at financially, and I believe we're going to continue to get more support as we move forward with this. I think it's just, they want to know,
Sure.
make sure that, you know, the ink is dried, and then we'll move on from there.
They want to see panels, new panels going up.
Yeah, or at least, you know, a date of when we're going to start
Sure.
demolition and everything, so,
Okay. Well,
Yes.
thanks for showing up.
yes, thank you. I appreciate being on here.
And we appreciate all the hard work you're doing with the grant work and especially the grant work.
Yes.
Because those are tough.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've
They
had,
take a lot of time.
Mike Parizek has been wonderful helping me with it, so it's greatly appreciated,
Thank you.
so.
I noticed he didn't come down tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, any further questions?
So this is, Shalyn, you want this moved on to the board to vote for this month?
So
What are we doing here?
next steps is Building and Grounds will look at bids. They
Okay.
should have the bids this month, and then from there, we will ask for blessing to go to the board. I just wanted to make sure that the Finance Committee didn't have any questions directly in regards to this, and just give an update as to where we are financially in the works, so.
Will we have bids for next Monday?
Mhm.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, and we will be there to present next Monday. And then the goal is to move forward to the end of the month. So, yep. That's the plan.
See, now, last week, or last month when you were here, all they saw was the back of your head. And tonight, they see you smiling, excited, and this is working very well, see?
They must be afraid that we're sticking our tongues out at them or something. I mean, now it's the other way around, so.
Well, it's
no.
always good to put a name and a face together so that I do know.
Yes. So,
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Just keep
Okay.
going, keep
All right.
plugging.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shalene.
Thank you, Mike.
So now we are to D, Antigo Area Youth Hockey Association Agreement.
Yes, so Tom Schofield brought this to the table. It is our usual agreement between the Antigo Area Hockey Association and the Unified School District of Antigo for using the rink. Our total cost for the 23-24 is $12,500. There were a few changes made to the contract, nothing real substantial. It was a 3-year contract with a $500 increment each year. It did cause some lease audit issues this past year because it's a 3-year contract, and so we have to actually have it analyzed in interest of what is on that lease pulled out. So per my request, we went to a single year that also doesn't tie the hands of future boards or us as a district if for some reason we change our mind of anything. The other things that changed is it was said that we would remove the bleachers and use them in the summer, but we don't do that due to the state of them. They just do not work for what we need them for anymore, and so we have not moved them for a couple of years, and so we removed that from the contract, seeing that we don't actually do that. Do you have any other questions?
What was the Hockey Association's response to the transition to a one-year?
They were very, very workable. They said absolutely we could go down to a 1 year and had no worries whatsoever, so.
So is this an increase in the price?
This isn't a $500 increase from last
That's what I
year.
figured.
Yep, it goes up 500 incrementally until they are happy. It is still substantially lower than our neighboring districts, what they pay for use of hockey rinks. So Tom, assured me that we are still getting a really good deal for what we use.
Okay. So I assume this one's coming forward.
Yep,
Okay.
that's my hope.
E, WIAA Co-op Team Renewal, Wittenberg-Burnhamwood with Antigo's hockey team.
No,
What?
the WIA, oh yes, with them joining our hockey team, correct?
Yes.
Yes. I'm like, us to join them, no, them to join us. So Wittenberg-Burnhamwood signs a cooperative with us. It's been the same year to year. Whatever costs that are incurred are split between how many participants there are, and Wittenberg pays us per participant. They have one, and that's what they are looking for this next year as well.
I don't see a problem with it. They're already doing it with us. And this sheet has their signatures, so it's just a matter of getting it on our agenda and approving it.
Yep.
For that child who wants to play hockey. Okay, F, Aspirus, Langlade Hospital Aquatic Center Agreement.
All right. So we partner with Langlade Hospital to offer our aquatic center for therapy use, and they have Mondays and Wednesdays from noon to 3 designated for their use at a rate of $87 an hour. This agreement would be good for this year from January until December. As you can see, it's a little late. It's one that was not on my radar until I came across it and went, I think we need to put it there. So if you guys had a chance to take a look at it, it really, we've been asked by the hospital because they need it for their audit purposes as well.
But we've done this
With this-
really
Yep.
since we opened.
Yes, correct. Yep. And the fees are the same from last year to this year. Tim and I had spoke about that prior to his departure and felt that they were still where they were at. We just raised them the year prior, that at $87 an hour, that was still a reasonable rate, so.
How is that rate determined?
The $87 an hour. So from what I can tell in the books, it was actually discussed between Tim and DPI due to the rate that we as a district pay when our schools are using it versus outside. So $87 an hour was a rate that, for a third party to come in and use it for the minimal use, the 3 hours a day, they said 87 was reasonable.
It just seems like an odd comparison
Mhm.
and a really low rate. It's positive for the hospital.
Let me bring it up, see.
Do we have comparables of other districts that might have something similar, like we did with the hockey contract?
Yeah, let me look and see what we got.
And you said the rate went up 2 years ago?
Yes.
What was the rate then, if you have that too?
Does anybody recall what we pay for OT partnership per hour? Oh no, that is a total hours per month contract, not an hourly.
Heidi would know if you want me to ask her.
Just curious what the
Comparison.
seems low. But that
Well,
one is,
and I
it's
wonder-
hours per month that we contract for the OT.
And that would be a service, is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, just.
Because we're not providing the service necessarily,
well,
just the
we're
water.
Providing the service yet, but yeah.
All right, so last year it was 87 again. Let me grab one that I pulled. I can keep digging for that. If we want to move down to the next one, but I should be able to
Okay,
get it here for you.
all right. We'll go back down to G, preliminary budget projection, budget overview, and enrollment and revenue limit.
All right. So if you want to take a look at the very first sheet, that is our enrollment projection. For 22-23, we had projected 1,962 total. We are up a bit from that. We're right around 2,000, so not quite as sharp of a decline from 21-22. We just finished that January count and provided that to DPI, so that is a bit higher than what we expected. From that, we have had some ins and outs to date. So I had those numbers pulled, just kind of looking at where we're increasing and where we're decreasing, because it was quite interesting to me that we're actually gaining in our elementaries, and that the students that are withdrawing or leaving are in our middle school and high school. So our elementaries are growing.
What is our current number? You said it was around 2,000?
Yep, I can grab the exact number here. So for our second Friday count, it came in at exactly 2,000. Our second Friday membership
And these are
count.
in-
That is the district, in-district total, 2,000, yes. And for our previous September count, it was 2,015, so.
So our projected enrollment numbers are still where you feel comfortable leaving them there?
Yes, this is updated in respects to our third Friday count, going for 23, 24, 24, 25, and so on. So we are looking at potentially like an 18-ish enrollment decrease between this year and next year. Being at 2,000, I would assume that we'd, be in a similar decrease. We're starting to level out a bit, which is good in some areas. The one area that I actually just received an email today is that as we level out as a district, you can also expect your declining enrollment exception to go away. And so there is a year in between when you are done declining and you level out where you do take a hit. Yeah. And that
Because
could,
it's a 3-year rolling average.
yep, it could be this next, in FY '23, right after,
Yeah.
so. Any questions in regards to the enrollment area?
So when you're talking enrollment, are you also adding in preschool and the 4K,
Yes. Yep.
that's what I thought.
Yep, preschool and 4K are added into that
Okay.
amount.
But then the FTE is different because of the 4K being .6.
Correct. Mhm. So from there, the next sheet shows our budget overview, where we're at the current moment. Still trending really similar to last year in revenues. We're down 40,000, but, with grant claims and that's a
It's
very,
nothing.
yep, very
I mean, I hate to say
minimal.
40,000 isn't nothing,
Yeah.
but.
Up at 35
when we're-
million.
Yeah, based on 35 million,
Yeah.
it's not bad.
And our salaries are up, expected to be in the salary area. Our benefits are down a bit. Purchase services are up with the purchases we've been making in connection between ESSER and then with inflation as well. But all
That's
right.
what it is.
So then
I
I
appreciate it.
just have a few things that I want to talk in regards to the revenue limit. One of them was looking ahead at that declining enrollment exemption going away potentially, and that year in between where we will take that hit to be considered of that. A few things that I've been hearing on the horizon through Forecast 5. I actually have a one-on-one in-person meeting with them tomorrow to do some more forecasting and projecting, more specific to our district that really makes sense to us. A few things that I'd like to make note of, because I'll start bringing budgets to you next month as to budget areas and some foundation things. I've been kind of talking with them, if we forecast everything that's in the governor's budget as proposed, Sunshine and Roses appeal, we're potentially looking at about a $700,000 deficit. That's very preliminary. If we go to a little bit more, not everything in the governor's budget, up to a 1.5, debating on what can be swayed or not. So I want you guys to just kind of be thinking in that realm. No matter, what route we are, we're a deficit, but it is a big span, and with the biennial budget, it's a shot in the dark.
I was guessing 1.2.
Okay, there, right in there. So, yeah, the 600,000 is kind of that's a very positive end of it, but, looking at what is realistic, that 1.2, 1.5 is a potential. And so we want to make sure that we're ready for that. A few other things that I've been seeing, if we want to talk like salaries, if we're looking at doing an increase, Biden has approved a government increase of 4.6% on wage at the current moment. If you look at what CPI is trending, it's closer to 8.6. So, I'll be bringing those parameters forward to you in different categories for you guys to look at. So, I, would probably build all my stuff off the 4.6. Last year we did a 4.7, I believe, if I remember correctly. So if you guys have anything specific that you want to see on certain categories or salaries, let me know. I can bring those forward to the next couple meetings, and we can look at what those look like. What Forecast 5 is projecting is a 3% increase on all expense. That's, I feel high to put it on all expense, but they play it safe. The one other area where I do see an increase is our health insurance. Our renewal is coming up, and the market itself is preparing for a 7% increase due to our history at the current moment. We're at a 102% mod with health insurance, which means they are losing money with our group, and so we could potentially be seeing upwards of 14%. It's not the worst, but it is definitely not the best. So just to prepare that that is a good potential where we will see that renewal coming in. And so I will be projecting the 14 in the health insurance area. Any other questions in
Or it's
regards?
supposed to be bad news.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate that.
I mean,
don't
just-
see it
Well,
as bad news, I see it as
No,
being
I'm
prepared,
proactive
I'm teasing.
preparation,
I know.
yeah, yeah.
I know, I was excited,
Um,
not excited about hearing it, but excited about
That
knowing
we were
and we
getting
can
the
plan
info.
and have discussions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Proactively, yeah.
Kind of talking about budget projections and budget overview, I also want to bring forward, I think it was probably last month, months have gone very fast for me, maybe the month before, I brought a budget calendar for you guys for approval. It was something Tim has always done, and it kind of listed out the basics of what we do over the year. I am in my courses for my licensure, and one of my first assignments was to do an analysis of 5 different schools' budget calendars. And so I have created a draft that I am working off of that is more comprehensive, that kind of breaks down what you guys can expect. It kind of explains to the stakeholders what they can expect to see and when. So for this next month, I will start bringing chunks of the budget to you guys and my plan is to break it down very, consumably. Here's salary and benefits. Here's our technology, so Mark's budget, in other words. Here's our curriculum and instruction budget, and be able to explain to you kind of what we are projecting for the next year within those areas. Directly connected to our continuous improvement plans and our strategic plan as well. So that way we can kind of align what we're doing and create the most impact with what we have. So in the next few months, that's what you can kind of expect to see come into the board with, some fluidity for change, but that's kind of my plan for March, is to kind of discuss more of the salaries and benefits, do I do a composition of some of these budget areas and have you guys take a look and kind of look through each one separately and then do a composition of all. So.
Sounds good.
All right.
I shared with Katie recently, and I think it's only fair to share with you, I am completely impressed with how she's handled the steep learning curve in front of her, her timeliness, her output. I just really applaud you for digging in and hitting the ground running. So.
I'm definitely running. That is for sure, so. I will continue to pull up the aquatics contract here. I was able to grab it so quick the day I needed it, and now I can't seem to find where it is at. But I will pull that and see once.
Thank you for sharing that, Julie, and thank you for continuously running.
Yeah.
It's very much appreciated.
Like every day, it's a million new things, and I'm learning something new constantly, which I absolutely love. And that I do enjoy, so. And I found it, see? You just had to give me 2 seconds. So when we started out, we were at $70 an hour, and that was up until 2020. We were at $70 an hour for that contract.
Okay, any,
That sounds inexpensive, but like Julie said, we're just providing the facility for this. We're not providing the trainers, the people that are actually running the program. I don't know what other schools do, but it is inexpensive.
Julie, I wonder if Brian Bailey could provide some insight, if they have any contracts at their aquatic centers that they, I could, yeah.
Shirley check, or are you?
Because they would be like us, just providing the facility.
Not the actual trainers or PTs. Yep, I can send an email
Okay.
to him.
Thank you. That way we can give you some comparables.
And there is no rush on this. I have called the hospital a couple times. I have not heard back at this point, so I just told them that I'd like to have a discussion about this year's contract, so
And they're currently using the facility?
they are. Yeah. Yeah, so what we would probably do is just, from that point, if anything were to change, we would be in touch and make sure that both parties are on the same page and go forward at that point if we were to change anything. Otherwise, for the current use, if you guys are good, we would stick with the 87 as that is what our.
And I told Katie, I don't remember this coming to the board before.
I don't remember, that's why I'm questioning too.
Yeah.
So I think, when she found it, we discussed it would be a good practice to add it with the others, so it's kind of a first for us.
Yeah. So,
So the fees that they pay us for this, does that go into Fund 80?
it does.
It
It
does.
goes.
Right back into the community?
Yep,
Okay.
right into the
All
pool.
right, good.
Yep.
okay. Any other things from the board to the group? Katie, and thank you so much as usual.
Yes.
Julie, thank you for being with us. And of course, Mary Kay.
Just
Oh, sure, I
a
was gonna
pre-note.
close now.
Well,
Now she's ready.
I asked Mary Kay this, and I just want your guys' input. I will not be here for the board meeting as I will be attending the federal funding conference through WASBO. During that time, I am able to attend virtually in the evening if that is something you guys would want, but I would leave that up to you as to what you feel is on the agenda and what you may need.
Well, the things we're bringing forward, I think they're gonna sail through.
Yeah, okay. Then I,
And the only thing would be what comes from the building with the bids, but there again, that's gonna sail through too, because, it is what bids are, what they are, and that's, so, from your end of the finance, I don't think it's gonna be a problem, Kate.
okay. If you guys do feel that something would be helpful to have, an overview or a snapshot of something, please
If we
let me
see
know.
something on the agenda that, before you go leave, we'll get ahold of you.
Sounds
But I
good.
don't think it's gonna
Okay.
happen.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll adjourn.
We will call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mary Kay, will you do roll call, please?
Jill Maddick Nelson.
Here.
Dr. Dave Bardo.
Here.
J.D. Schrader.
Here.
Amy Downs.
Here.
Dr. Julie Sprague.
Here.
Danny Pyatt.
Here?
Sorry, public comment? Andy, would you like to join us up here?
No.
Better view the screen here.
That is fair. If you'd like to join at any time, please feel free.
I didn't even see you back there.
Right back.
Just
Okay.
snuck in.
New business, A, winter benchmarking data and mid-year AGR review.
All right, so good evening. I'll direct your attention to the screen. It's also attached in your board docs, and I see some of you have it printed out as well. So I'll be joined this evening not only by the principals, but also Dr. Sprague will present on a few slides as well with some longitudinal data from some of our once-a-year assessments too. So you've seen some of this before. I don't want to rush over anything though if you need some clarification, but here's just a reminder of our continuous improvement goals that are written in our district continuous improvement plan. So tonight we'll be directly addressing the student achievement goal statement, and as I shared, Dr. Sprague will be citing some of the evidence that you see there in forward exam, ACT, Aspire, and ACT. So you can see some updates there. This is just a reminder that our district plan is supported by our school level plans as well. So each school has their own continuous improvement plan that feeds into our district level plan. So here's some demographics of the entire district. We showed you this at the beginning of the year. That was at third Friday count. These are our counts as of second Friday count. Those are 2 mandatory reporting windows for student enrollment. You will see that I didn't note any like plus or minus percentages on this slide, and the reason for that is because there were not large pluses or minuses to any category. It was around 1% or less for most of these. So I didn't note like if there was a change of 0.8% or anything like that, because they were very close to the beginning of the year. When we get to the elementary data, you'll see some specific data changes for their level when we get to the AGR updates. Again, here's some additional district demographic data. Again, no significant changes to our student percentage of group for the race ethnicity portion either, but just want to update you of who our students are in our school. So just a reminder of our academic goal. On the next slide, Dr. Sprague will go through just a couple of our longitudinal data pieces. But again, this was a 5-year academic goal, which we extended 1 additional year due to COVID and other factors related to that.
Okay, thank you. So as you can see, the academic goal, back when we formulated this and shared it with the board, we wanted to measure the same thing the state measures in terms of our school and district report card. So you can read it there under, or on that page, the academic page. But the problem with that is it's a lagging indicator. You only get those scores once a year. So what we wanted to do was show you some longitudinal data of how we are faring on our goal. The forward exam, though, we did put, and when I say we, I say Amy, who is far more tech savvy than I. So we put all of the kids who take the forward exam together. So that's approximately 800 students. And it covers grades 3 through 8. So what you see there are the trend lines from both ELA and math. They don't look too impressive. But again, this is that one point in time, a lagging indicator. So when I look at these, I think, we're not moving the needle. But we're hoping when you see the progress monitoring data, which is that far more intimate indicator of what's really happening on a day-to-day basis and a better indicator of progress per se, you'll feel more hopeful. The good news is on the forward exam, as you can see, 18 to 19, we were on that strong decline in ELA. We're at least trending, close to trending in a better direction compared to that as we move forward. And math, we're actually trending upward now, which is a good sign. ACT Aspire, it's the next one, or pre-ACT Secure, as it's going to be called, or is called now. The name is changing. A far smaller group of students. This would be only one class, so maybe 150 kids. Say it again?
classes.
Oh, two, I'm
Ninth
sorry.
and 10th.
Ninth and 10th, thank you. So a far smaller sample, but again, we feel proud that we had such a significant decline in 18-19, and now we're trending upward in both ELA and math. The ACT is the one that only has one grade level scoring, and we're closer to the state in this one than to the naked eye it would appear in the other assessments. And you see the composite is on the first page, and then we broke it down for you in ELA and math.
Can you give the grade level for that?
The ACT is junior, grade 11. And then the Aspire is 9 and 10.
I think it's helpful for people that listen.
Oh,
in.
okay.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So, again, those trend lines, I personally was thinking, but we're improving, and I think you'll see that in the more, what am I looking to say, the more complete scale. It's not such a broad lagging one-year scale, but you'll see the intimate progress that we're making as we move forward tonight.
So are there any questions? You haven't seen that data set before, so I just want to make sure that you're having a little bit of time to think about it and ask questions if any come up. You notice that in the other graphs, there were gaps. That was due to the spring closure during COVID.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
The ACT, however, the students were able to test before the school closed for that spring semester, so that's why you see a more complete test, or a more complete line when you look at that graph. Okay, so you've also seen this slide before. The majority of the data tonight that will be presented to you is with our FastBridge benchmarking system that we do 3 times a year. We just finished our winter benchmarking, so that comes with a lot of discussion, conversation, and also changes to what our teachers and also support staff are doing to support our students based on their progress. So in looking from a district reading proficiency lens, the K2 band is separated because they take a separate assessment. They are not the same reading assessments at grade 2 through 11, so it's a much higher group, much larger population. There's a lot more kids testing there, but what you can see is that our students are at 65% proficiency, so that's the low risk in the college pathway performance at K1. And then you'll see that that number is slightly lower when you get to the grades 2 through 11. That's a really large group. We'll break it down by level for you a little bit when the principals come up here. But just wanted to show you an overall look. All of these perspectives are helpful when you make decisions both from the district level and then at the building and level of students. So this graph is a growth graph, and I know that we've had some questions about this before about explaining kind of what that means. So the blue bar is showing students who are in the 30th percentile and above in their growth score. You want that blue bar as your group of students to be at 80% or above. That means 80% of your students or more are growing at the rate that they are, the typical growth or aggressive growth. You can see that these scores here, especially in our grades 2 through 11, are increased in comparison to where we've been before. Last year we were more in the 60s regularly, and now we're seeing some heightened growth by some of our students as we move into this winter benchmarking period. Here you can see some comparisons between last year at this time and now this year at this time. I'm not going to read all of the numbers to you, but if you're more of a visual person, you can see that this testing window, this is for early reading, just the K1 here. You can see that we have many more students who are testing proficient at this time period than they were last year. And you're seeing some shifts in those red and orange bars to more in the green bars, which is what we want to see. We're not quite growing as much as we'd like to see in the blue percentile, but this is still good progress to note.
Do you have any feedback on the decrease in the blue from last year to this year? Or the 1% and 3% this year, was it 7 and 5 last year?
So remember, this is a really small group of kids, so this is just K-1. So the only consistent students in this group would be those kindergartners last year that moved to first grade. And as far as specific feedback, I don't necessarily have anything at this moment. I don't know if any of the elementary principals have something specific they want to share in regards to that, but
That's fall to winter, though, Jill, not,
Yeah.
oh, never mind, you're looking at last year. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
I just didn't know if there was something that might be contributable to it or not, or change, or,
not that we've necessarily pinpointed, I would
Okay.
say. Here's the same type of comparison for that larger group. Noticing that here the shifts are a little bit smaller, remembering this is a much larger population of students. So we're seeing a little bit of growth, but not large numbers of growth, just 1% here and there.
What's it look like when you do it by grade level? You know, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth? Is it different than looking at it like this?
It is, and if you recall last fall, I showed some longitudinal data, and I'll show that again in the spring where it charts the cohort of students to see if they're trending upward. We didn't include the winter benchmarking because then it's getting to be a lot of data points for like fall, winter, and spring data, so we started tracking fall and spring to show the growth as a trend, as like the third grade group this year, next year fourth grade, next year fifth grade. So we do have that prepared. If you wanted me to go out, I do have that slide from the fall still in here, but it wouldn't include this data in here. But we were noticing that there were trends upward per grade cohort in that. There were a few outliers in that, but not many. Good question. So then we're working into the math proficiency. Here you can see again the same split for the K-1 and also the 2 through 11. So same, that's kind of the grade break for both of those assessments where they take a different assessment in first compared to second. Here you can see some larger number of students who are performing proficient, or college pathway is the word that is used in FastBridge. That's the blue bar. So you can see that is at 70% for our youngest, and then for our older students, we're at 61%. When you look at the growth, here we're seeing again an increase in the number of students who are growing at the typical or aggressive rate. So again, this is another place where we want to see that 80% or higher in growth, but we keep inching forward more and more. You'll see some really positive growth when you get into the building level, when they share out some of their data about some really big celebrations that we're seeing growth in some specific grades and content. Here are some comparisons. So here you can see we have some larger populations in the college pathway path for both last year and this year. We noticed just a slight dip from fall to winter this is the early math group again, so just those two groups of K and 1. When we look at grades 2 through 11, you're seeing again more consistency and then just a little bit smaller gains again. Much larger population, but still some incremental growth. You can see from last year compared to this year. So just a few things to note. We are trending upwards in our progress monitoring longitudinal data. Slowly but surely, we're inching upwards. We're seeing an increase in that slight proficiency in both subjects. And we continue, there's some really good efforts being made at all levels about teacher data use and also systems data use to address student needs, and also lots of efforts around our teams planning for all students. So not only what's happening in the large group, the universal instruction, but then also some small group instruction for student needs. So I'm going to take a pause there and see if there are any questions before I shift to Clint's high school data. Clint, would you like me to click for you?
Sure. So the first
slide that you'll see is that proficiency piece. And while we want to consider that proficiency when we're looking at the scores, we really want to focus on the growth, and that's what the high school's goal is focused around, is increasing the percent of growth. But so that snapshot there for proficiency is again that achievement, what they're achieving at. And when you click to the next slide, that is the growth. So we're really looking at that moderate and aggressive growth, which is in the blue, compared to the flat or low growth, which is in the red. One thing I want to point out, if you would go back to the proficiency slide, when you look at, if you're adding like our low risk and college pathways together, you get a certain percentage. So let's say we'll take 8th grade and 50 plus 5 is 60%, and then flip to the growth. And you always see that growth.
Did you just say 50 plus 5 is 60%?
Oh, sorry, 55.
Yeah, he did.
You did want to just. correct that
55
correct.
plus 5 is 60%. And when you look at the moderate and aggressive growth, it's 70%. So we're moving more kids than are in that proficient or advanced category. Now that doesn't mean again that all of the kids that were proficient or advanced in the achievement are in this blue bar. Some are not. You can score again in that low risk or college pathway category and not grow compared to your peers when you take FastBridge. But overall, when you add those scores together and compare them to the growth, we have more percentage of kids in higher growth than are in higher achievement, which is good. We want to move them up in growth. So when you go to A Math and take a look at A Math, there is our proficiencies again, and we want to keep pushing those upwards, but the only way we can push those proficiencies upwards is when you take a look at the growth. And so as Amy mentioned before, we want those blue bars closer to 80% or above. And we're getting there, we're striving for it. Last year at this time, 4 out of 5 classes in both A Reading and A Math, we have better growth this year than we had last year in 4 out of 5. I shouldn't say that, in 3 out of 5. In one, we had equal to growth, and in one, it went down a little bit. Moving on to our celebrations and continued areas of growth, our SLO, or student learning objectives that teachers write every year, their goals are specific to literacy. We're focusing on the second semester challenge at the high school, which is really around our PLC process and teacher efficacy, which is, their collective efforts in pushing growth forward for students. And according to John Hattie, which is, you've probably seen some of his statistics before, that teacher efficacy has a 1.57 effect size. And when you look at Hattie's research, anything above a 0.4 is greater than 1 year's growth. So 1.57, I believe that's the largest effect size on his chart of factors impacting student learning. Continued efforts. ELA got a new resource this year, and we're continuing to look into that and learn more about that and what it can and can't do. And the teachers are becoming more comfortable with it, but it is still our first year in that. I talked about our second semester challenge with focus on disciplinary literacy. It's a celebration, but also a continued growth in both categories, because we want that PLC process, that continuous review of data-informed decisions that teachers are making about their content. We just want to embed that as just the way we do business. And some teams are more progressed than others in that.
What is disciplinary literacy? Does that mean like literacy in biology or science or something?
Yeah,
Math?
yep. So how we learned about disciplinary literacy is we had Mike Waniger, our coach, our literacy coach. He led our staff in a close reading of an article from DPI about disciplinary literacy. So disciplinary literacy is in all of the different subjects. And we did a close reading on that article from DPI because we wanted to model a strategy that they could use no matter what content they were in. So whether you're in agriculture or biology or metals or music, you can have an article around something that you want the kids to draw knowledge on. And that close reading strategy is a strategy that you can use wherever you are.
Do you remember any of them off the top of your head? Any of the strategies?
That close reading is the strategy that we modeled
Oh,
for staff.
Well, what exactly is that?
So that is taking a text and reading it through. The first time you're reading it through, you're just reading it through for the gist of the text. So you're looking at it, you're getting the main idea of what it's about. The second time you're reading it through, we had the staff use an annotation guide. And I can't remember exactly what the annotation guide was, but it could be circle things that you have questions about, underlined important main ideas, and then put quotation marks around, or not quotation marks, but parentheses around the supporting details of that, and make notes in the margins. That's what you do on the second and third time that you read through that. And then we had some conversations in their collaborative teams in that staff meeting around how they can see using disciplinary literacy in their specific content areas. And
So they're trying to get the kids to also use this close reading strategy?
they could choose that as something to focus on in their second semester challenge. So one thing that they might do is give them a pretest on X article, on their knowledge of that after they read it through on their own the first time. And then have another assessment at the end of that close reading lesson. Now that assessment doesn't have to be a summative or a test that they have or an official quiz that they have. It could be an exit slip on whatever specific standard that they were trying to teach through that. So if they were trying to identify the main idea and supporting details, then their exit slip, they would ask the kids to write down the main idea of the article and 2 supporting details that they have. Not a big paper, but just a little snapshot. And then you have the kids who got it, the kids who didn't, and then we're going to come together as a collaborative team, look at that data and use it to inform our decision on what we do next. So if a bunch of kids got it, but a couple kids didn't, that's going to be a different decision than half of them got it and half of them didn't. And that's what they're doing in the collaborative teams in the second semester challenge. Does that make sense?
Have you seen any kids in our district trying to use ChatGPT to use their essays yet?
Not yet.
Common yet, or is that?
We've had that out in our memo. We've had a couple conversations about it with staff, but we haven't seen anything.
You haven't seen any super brilliant essays that are unexpected?
No.
That's different.
We've also talked to our instructional assistants who monitor Go Guardian about it too. And the one other thing I want to mention, continued effort. This could be in the celebrations. It's definitely a celebration, but it's continued effort because we want to focus on that attendance piece, getting kids in class all the time. And the first semester last year, we had one class of our 5 classes that was over 89%, sorry. And this year we have 3 classes, which is obviously better than 1. And we're continuously working to improve that attendance rate.
Mike, are we back to bathrooms again, or is there still the strict bathroom rule, or?
Not as strict as we had last year. So we still want all kids to have a pass outside of class, and that's really what we're focusing on. 43-minute classes still. they shouldn't need to use it all that much, but we know the habituals, so to speak, that are continuously struggling with that. Usually they're having troubles getting to class and getting into the tardy issue.
To clarify, one class would be one grade level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's what I mean, like the 8th grade class and the 9th grade class, so that grade level. Yep. Which is the same thing that I looked at when we looked at the percentages of growth in this year compared to last year. I said we had one that was equal to growth, 3 that were achieving more than they were last year.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Jill, can I just ask Roger's question here?
You may ask a question at any time without seeking permission.
So you cite Hattie's there, but I was thinking that the biggest effect, and I don't have all these Hattie things memorized.
It's on my door if you want to go look.
Oh, well, maybe I should go check, but was student responsibility.
Goal setting.
Goal setting?
That is
Student goal setting.
it's one of the
Isn't
top
that like a
ones.
1.3 something? It's over a 1, I know that. But
So it's also
It's right there.
highly
it's
effective.
very,
yeah.
very high, the goal setting.
Yeah, so how do you think goal setting measures up for students in our high school?
As far as them setting their own goals?
Yeah, that's what it would mean, right?
Yeah, we haven't exercised that as much as we need to. Yeah. But that's one thing that we talked about as far as something we could do as a school, diving into next year. Teacher SOLs.
You'll actually hear more about that tonight.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, Heather?
All right. So this is our reading. We looked at this overall as a school, but we also dug into our PLCs, our reading and our math, focusing it on how are students growing? Because sometimes when people take a test, it's like flat growth or aggressive growth. So what we did was, again, we looked at this overall, but we really dug into how many students aggressively grew. And with our math, we had 66 students grow aggressively, that's 4th through 7th grade. And then we had 91 students grow aggressively in our reading. And then typical growth, we had 275 in math and 284 in reading. So
Tell me that again. What is the difference between aggressive growth and normal growth and below average growth? Like, it's a percentage of how much your score improves, or?
Yep, aggressive, what is it offhand? Do we have I don't know what the exact percentage
The
is.
percentage
It's
of that? I
of the
believe it's
aggressive.
like 84.99.
Aggressive is?
That would be we looked at norms, so it would be the number of
That's in a
students.
benchmark.
Yeah. That would be the number of students scoring within the percentile that are meeting that higher growth category.
But it's something like, just if we're making up the number, it's something like you grew at 85% versus.
And it's progressively moving
It's
more
compared to
from
your-
fall
your
to
peers,
winter
yeah,
to
yeah.
spring. So you could be, okay, I got like a 10, but that's not good enough. You want to keep moving up, and that's that aggressive growth. So we did have some students that were in that flat growth that didn't make any gains. They might have made a couple gains, but not enough to move them up to that next level.
You told
And it
us
was
last year that,
interesting.
well, the growth, the test is harder, right, the second time?
Yeah, it's
So
always a
even if you-
moving target.
So even if you made growth and you would have done better on the last test, if you didn't grow enough.
Yep. And you know what, interesting, it's not just students that have lower skills. Some of our students that have really high skills were in that flat. So some of the conversations with the last discussion that we had were, we need to make sure that we're checking in with all of our students at all levels. Don't just assume, because you tend to go to the students that need more help, right? So that was a really good conversation, that they were able to notice that from digging a little bit deeper into the benchmark. So again, these are the norms. We looked at both ends, but we did dig specifically into the benchmarks.
So sorry, I know I was flipping around a little bit because you were talking about growth for reading and for math. So I just wanted to make sure that we were noticing both of those too.
So we're ecstatic about our 7th grade scores. And all of our scores have improved. If you look at our 4th grade coming in, that was something that we added Dreambox this year to all of our 4th through 7th grade, which at this time last year I was hearing about Dreambox and their scores, and then we were like, what are they doing and what could we do to help our math? And I'm not saying that's the only thing, but it definitely has an impact as a resource that it's a game-like, but they're really digging into the skill, and the teachers can set and really dig into what each individual student needs. And they're at that point right now too where that perseverance gets to be, like they might want to just, I don't really want to work that hard, or this is too difficult. Well, then it's having those individual conversations with those students. So Dreambox was added in. We have 80 minutes for our math at all 3 levels. And during those 80 minutes, it may not be like in 4th and 5th grade, it may not just be a full 80 minutes, just based on their special schedule. But we work on fluency of math, we work on a mini lesson, and then we also have time for the Dreambox, and then we also use another source called IXL, which is really helping align with some of the forward exam prep we're focusing on now. And there's always homework time, so where does the student get that additional support? And then we also extend our math and our reading into our interventions for WIN, which is what I need, and we have them every day. And we base our student grouping off of our results from our FastBridge scores. So I'm kind of talking about continued efforts and celebrations. So just so you know, we meet every single week with our PLCs for our math and ELA. That makes a significant impact on how our teachers analyze and have conversations, not just about pacing, but the weekly assessments. And I can guarantee you the scores that we saw are really because of that work every single week digging in. So what Clint was talking about, disciplinary literacy, what does our social studies and science teachers do? They do meet. We meet with them every other week, but we meet with the core teachers every single week. And through that, the data is helping drive decisions. They're really focusing on horizontal and vertical types of conversations, like what's going on in 4th grade, what's going on in 7th grade, how are we exiting 7th grade, what do we want that to be prepared for in 8th grade. And with both ELA and math, we are looking at new resources, which you're aware of. And right now, our 4th and 5th grade and 6th and 7th grade are working on the ELA resources. So that's a whole nother conversation. So within, they're meeting all the time, even outside the meeting times. They're always having conversations, and our coaches, Jamie Kirsch, does a wonderful job with that. Teal really helps out a lot with the math. So we have some really good structures in place that they're able to do that each week. And then we're really focusing on small group instruction. So during that universal time, if there's a group of students that may need some individual help, we also have push-in supports. We have Emily Kazarek and Amy Reichel, who are like a behavior support, but they're also an academic support. And sometimes they can go into the classroom, or a student can come out of the classroom, and then it aligns with that instruction. We just got 2 brand new teachers put into our 4th grade, which has now moved. Tessa Lower was teaching 4th grade, and now she's moved into title. So that's going to be a big support, because now we'll have 2 title teachers. We weren't able to service as many students through title semester 1, but we've been able to adjust that as well. I talked about the resources, talked about our interventions, and then along with that really comes a sense of belonging. So we had a celebration last week with our staff, because our staff has a goal of sense of belonging, and we, after digging into our scores, really align that to when we're all moving in the same direction, we're able to work a lot harder and smarter in order to help each other out. So the celebrations on the left, we did have 98% of our students test this winter, which that's been pretty common. We do a really good job about getting the students that maybe miss the day that we're doing the testing. We really have a good system where they're able to just do that pretty fluently. This time we did add some small group for our FastBridge, where maybe students might need to have a little bit more quiet area. They do that for the board exam. Our school has acknowledged, why not for all assessments, if we can make it work. And then overall our scores are showing continued proficiency and growth. And we are working on universal design for learning, which that brings in that disciplinary literacy as well. And when Amy was our principal a few years ago, she led us in a closed reading with Jamie Kirsch as well. And so we continue to talk about what does that look like in all of our disciplinary literacy. And I don't care if it's, it could be even physical education, health class.